Today we'll be providing the presentation in English, Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. So if you are seeking interpretation, please follow these instructions. First I'll give them in English, and then I'll give them ask the interpreters to give them in the respective languages. First, click on the interpretation button in your Zoom screen if you need Spanish, Cantonese, or Mandarin support. This button is usually at the bottom of your screen, but the location will depend on what type of device you're using. Select your preferred language, and then if you're calling in by phone, interpretation is not an option in Zoom, so you'll want to log into the actual application if you can to use the interpretation services. Next, I'll ask the Spanish interpreter to translate that into Spanish, followed by Cantonese and Mandarin.
Sorry to interrupt. Before we do that, can we please turn off the interpretation feature temporarily, just so that the interpreters can repeat those instructions in the main channel?
Michael, I think you'll need to do that.
Michael, did we get that? It wouldn't be a meeting without a minor technical issue.
They are speaking already in the rooms, Anthony.
Did they repeat the instructions? But I think everyone needs to hear the instructions as well.
That's correct. Michael, if you could just turn it off temporarily so that the main room can hear those instructions as well.
So as much as we love the Zoom technology, it's a little bit challenging for them to leave and come back. So we do ask folks to sign into the different languages options that are there on the bottom of the screen in Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin.
All right. You're still getting an echo. I don't know whose microphone is open, but. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Let's go to the next slide, please. So for those of us joining today, all of the presentation that we will be giving today is available already on our website. It's available in all of the languages that we're using today. So that's English, Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. If you go to the website on the screen, you will find a section called Documents. And if you click on those documents, you will find the specific language for the presentation that you'd like to view. So I want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. This is the first of two informational sessions that we will be doing in advance of the release of the Draft Environmental Impact Report for the Los Angeles Area Rapid Transit Project. My name is Anthony Crump. I'm the Interim Executive Officer for Community Relations here at Metro. Next slide, please. So for tonight, this is the agenda that we're going to be doing. I'll be covering the purpose of the meeting, how to participate in the virtual meeting, giving a brief overview of the project, the CEQA process. We'll go on to the LA Arch project overview specifically. Then we'll talk about the Draft Environmental Impact Report's public comment period, and we will do a question and answer session at the conclusion. Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information about the project, about the California Environmental Quality Act review process in advance of the release of the Draft Environmental Impact Report for this particular project. That Draft Environmental Impact Report is scheduled to be released next week. So today we'll be talking a little bit about the areas that will be covered in that report, the approach to it, as well as giving some basic information about the project itself. Next slide. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will be doing questions and answers. Please use the question and answer feature to type a question in during the question and answer session. We will be reading those questions, and then we will be responding to them based upon what is put in the question and answer section. You can put your question in whatever language you are comfortable with, and we will be translating those questions and then reading them out loud so that people have the opportunity to hear a response. And with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Corey Zelmer, Deputy Executive Officer for Countywide Planning and Development at Metro. Corey.
Thank you, Anthony, and good evening, everyone. I'll start here with a brief overview of the CEQA process and Metro's role on the project itself. So first, as Anthony mentioned, CEQA stands for the California Environmental Quality Act and is required for all projects undertaken, funded, or requiring approval by a public agency. It is intended to inform the public and decision makers about the proposed project, to disclose any potential environmental impacts resulting from a proposed project, and to provide multiple opportunities for comment on the environmental issues associated with the proposed project. There are two comment periods that accompany the CEQA process. The first is at the beginning of the process, referred to as the public scoping period. And the second is the draft environmental impact report public review period, which is upcoming. So in terms of the project itself, the Los Angeles Aerial Rapid Transit Project is proposed by the Los Angeles Aerial Rapid Transit Technologies, LLC, and is identified as the project sponsor for the draft environmental impact report. Metro is serving in the capacity as lead agency in the preparation of an environmental impact report under CEQA. And as the lead agency, Metro has the responsibility to ensure that the EIR adequately assesses any potential project impacts. The proposed mitigation measures are appropriate. The CEQA process has been complied with for all public noticing, public outreach, and distribution of documents. I'm getting some feedback. Is anyone else hearing that?
Yes, I believe it might be Ron.
Is there an ability to mute?
Thank you.
Thank you. And just the last note here is just to clarify that the draft EIR evaluates potential environmental effects for both the construction and operation of the proposed project. Next slide, please. So one new feature of CEQA is SB 44, which was adopted in 2021 and provides the ability to streamline CEQA litigation for any environmental leadership transit project. The proposed project that we're here tonight to talk about is a qualified transit project under SB 44, due in part to operating at zero emissions and also over the useful life of the project by reducing no less than 50,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases and reducing no less than 30 million vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, within the project corridor. Now, as part of SB 44, the project is required to conduct one informational workshop and one public hearing during the public comment period. For this project, however, we will be providing two informational workshops and two public hearings. The two informational workshops will be held in October, and the two public hearings will be held in December. Next slide. In terms of our overall timeline for the CEQA process, this graphic here gives us the general layout of the activities associated with the CEQA process. The yellow box is where we are today. To the left of the yellow box are the activities we've already completed, and to the right are activities upcoming. So to start us off, back in October of 2020, we released what is called a notice of preparation, and this was intended to inform the public and agencies and other stakeholders that an environmental impact report was to be prepared for the proposed project. And the NOP also started what is referred to as the public scoping period. So the first comment period associated with the EIR process. And that scoping period ran from October 1 of 2020 through November 16 of 2020. And we provided 2 meetings during that period, a virtual scoping meeting as well as a virtual open house, as a way to provide the public an opportunity to provide input on the proposed project and feedback on the scope of the environmental process itself. Then in June of 2021, there were a series of community information sessions held with the intent to inform the public on any updates to the proposed projects that had occurred since the public scoping period in November of the prior year. And as Anthony mentioned, we're here today to conduct another community information session, one today and one again on Saturday. And the intent here again is to inform the public about the upcoming release of the draft environmental impact report, offer an opportunity for question and answer at the end of today's meeting, and an opportunity to talk with the project team at our in-person event this Saturday. Following this series of community information meetings, we will then release the draft EIR, which will start that second comment period referred to as the public review period for the draft environmental impact report. Once that comment period is concluded, after the public meetings have been concluded that are required as part of SB 44, we will begin preparing the final environmental impact report, which in large part includes responses to all comments received during the public review period on the draft EIR. And then the last 3 boxes there, after the final EIR is prepared, it would be presented to the Metro Board for certification and project approval, followed soon after by the filing of a notice of determination to signal that the EIR is complete and a project has been approved by the lead agency. Next slide. So here's the schedule specific to releasing of the draft environmental impact report. As Anthony said, the draft EIR will be released on Monday, this coming Monday, October 17, 2022. And that will start a 60-day public comment and review period that will conclude on Friday, December 16th, 2022. Next slide. And again, during the public review and comment period for the draft EIR, we are holding 2 informational workshops, both in October. The first is on Saturday, October 22nd. That will be a virtual meeting. The second is on Tuesday, October 25th, and that will be in person. And the intent and the purpose of those meetings is to provide the public with the key analyses and the conclusions of the EIR, and offer an opportunity for questions and discussion with the project team. And then in December, there will be 2 public hearings. The first is on Saturday, December 10th, which will be in person. The second will be Tuesday, December 13th, and that'll be virtual. And the purpose of those public hearings are to receive or to hear testimony and receive comments on the draft EIR. But in addition to the public hearings themselves, there will be other opportunities to provide comments, and we'll provide information on how and in what ways comments can be received on the draft EIR, be it through email, through postal mail, or through a phone line. There will be multiple ways to provide comments on the draft EIR, in addition to the public hearings that are shown here. So with that, I will turn the presentation now over to Jessica.
Thank you, Corey. And just a reminder again, if you need access to interpretation, you can click on the globe at the bottom. Si necesitan escuchar la presentación en español, pueden hacer un clic en el globo abajo. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Cisco. I'm part of the contractor team preparing the draft environmental impact report. And as we know, it's being released on Monday, and it includes a robust analysis of all environmental topics in CEQA. Some examples of these topics include aesthetics, including key observation points along the proposed alignment and potential impacts to scenic vistas and light and glare, air quality, energy, and greenhouse gas emissions, including the proposed project's reduction in pollutant emissions, long-term energy consumption, and greenhouse gases over the lifetime of the project. Cultural resources, including mitigation measures and project design features to reduce potential impacts to archaeological and historical resources. Noise and vibration, including mitigation measures to reduce impacts during construction. Parks and recreation, including the transit connection to parks. And finally, transportation as the final example here that I'll give, including the proposed project's implementation of a construction traffic management plan during construction and the project's lifetime reduction of vehicle miles traveled. Moving on to the next slide. The draft EIR will also include an analysis of the 3 project alternatives, including the no project alternative, the Spring Street alignment alternative, and the transportation systems management alternative, which looks at an enhanced Dodger Stadium Express bus service between Union Station and Dodger Stadium. In addition, in response to stakeholder feedback, the draft EIR includes analysis of 5 design and use options to the proposed project. The draft EIR also includes other additional evaluations based on comments to Metro, including an evaluation of Los Angeles State Historic Park usage, including kite flying and the park's special events, and an airspace analysis regarding helicopters and heliports within the project vicinity. And we're going to move on to the next slide. So the project sponsor collaborated with businesses in El Pueblo and Chinatown, as well as the Los Angeles State Historic Park and the Los Angeles Dodgers, to prepare a proposed project video celebrating the communities and culture along the proposed project alignment. So we'll go ahead and take a look, and just note that depending on your internet speed, you might have a little bit of a delay in viewing the video. It's about a minute long.
Imagine a new way to travel and be connected for a cleaner LA. Imagine an emissions-free transport network that soars above the city. One that brings together people and places, old neighborhoods and new experiences. And a chance to celebrate what makes our city great. Our culture, our taste, our vision, our days in the sun with old friends and new ones. We can get there if we just set our sights high. We can get there together. LAART, 7-minute ride from Union Station, 0 emissions. The first permanent transit connection to Dodger Stadium.
So as we just heard in the video, the proposed project would provide the first permanent transit connection to Dodger Stadium. And the travel time between Union Station and Dodger Stadium would be roughly 7 minutes for the 1.2-mile gondola. Up to 20% of fans could ride the gondola before and after each Dodger game. In addition to games and events at the stadium, the project would operate daily to serve existing residents, workers, park users, and visitors to Los Angeles. The project is zero-emission, environmentally friendly rapid transit that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions as a result of reduced vehicle trips in and around Dodger Stadium and on neighborhood streets, roadways, and freeways. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the project location and alignment next. So this graphic shows the project location and alignment. The project would commence, as we've said, adjacent to Union Station and El Pueblo, and terminate at Dodger Stadium with an intermediate station at the southernmost entrance to Los Angeles State Historic Park. The project would connect the surrounding communities of Chinatown, Mission Junction, Elysium Park, Echo Park, and Solano Canyon, as well as the Los Angeles State Historic Park, all to the regional transit system accessible at Union Station. And the proposed project alignment maximizes alignment along the public right-of-way and publicly owned property and minimizes aerial rights over private properties, taking into account existing and future adjacent land uses. So we'll take a look at some precedents. This slide shows several modern aerial transit systems which are operating in a number of cities around the world. Established gondola transit systems worldwide, such as La Paz, Bolivia, and Mexico City, Mexico, are being used as rapid transit for the urban populations that they serve. Similar to the systems used in Germany and Vietnam and France, the proposed project is a 3S gondola with cabins that carry approximately 30 to 40 passengers and offer a smooth, stable ride. And as shown on this graphic, a gondola system includes passenger stations, a non-passenger junction, and towers to support the aerial cables that carry the gondola cabins. The cabins allow for sitting or standing, and they're fully ADA accessible and provide room for strollers and bicycles. The draft EIR will detail the project's 3 passenger stations, 1 non-passenger junction, and 3 towers. And the draft EIR will also provide information on the gondola technology and safety systems. And I'll now turn it back over to Anthony, where we'll hear a little bit more about how to comment on the draft EIR and upcoming public meetings.
Thank you, Jessica. Next slide. As indicated earlier by Corey, the draft environmental impact report is scheduled to be released on Monday, October 17th. Once it is released, that begins a 60-day comment period. Comments can be received in a variety of different forms. One, you can email them to laart@metro.net. You can call our phone number, which is area code 213-922-6913. You can also mail your comments to Mr. Corey Zelmer, Zelmer, Deputy Executive Officer, Metro, 1 Gateway Plaza, mail stop 99-22-6, Los Angeles, California, 90012. And then in addition, there are the public hearing is on Saturday, December 10th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. At Los Angeles Union Station Ticketing Concourse at 800 North Alameda Street, Los Angeles, California, 90012. It's also a virtual meeting via Zoom on Tuesday, December 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. And the website is listed there for additional information. You can also learn more about the project and the draft environmental impact report once it is released by going to metro.net/aerial rapid transit, where you'll find information about the project as well as the draft EIR once it is released. Once it is released to the public on Monday, October 17th. All right, so just a review of upcoming meetings. We have an in-person meeting scheduled for Saturday, October 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. That is at Los Angeles Union Station Ticketing Concourse at 800 North Alameda Street. The same information that is presented in the meeting today will be available at that meeting on Saturday. So you do not need to go to that meeting if you're looking for new information. It'll be the exact same information that's being presented today. You can also find out more information on our website. Again, it's metro.net/aerial rapid transit. And once the draft environmental impact report is released, there'll be 2 informational workshops and then 2 public hearings. The first informational workshop during the comment period is Saturday, October 22nd, and that is a virtual one. The second one is on Tuesday, October 25th, and that is an in-person one. And then there's 2 public hearings scheduled for the draft EIR. The first one is scheduled for Saturday, December 10th in person, and the second is scheduled for Tuesday, December 13th as a virtual one. Next slide, please. Next, we are going to go to questions and answers. So as indicated previously, if you have a question, please put it in the question and answer box on Zoom, and we'll go ahead and start to respond to some of those questions. In addition to, actually, I made a note to myself. Let's go back one slide. For Saturday's in-person pre-DEIR release community information session. This is the one on Saturday, October 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It is at Union Station. However, I failed to mention that we will be validating parking at these meetings. So that will be an option if you need to drive to the meeting itself. Of course, we always encourage people to take Metro. So given that Union Station is a major hub, I strongly encourage everyone to take Metro, but if that is not an option, you can drive, and we will be providing parking validation for those meetings. All right, let's go back to questions and answer. So if you put your questions in the Q&A box, we will go ahead and start to answer some of those. Let's see. Let's get them queued up. First question. Would it not be more cost effective to repair the sidewalk from Dodger Stadium to Chinatown and add lighting? So we are not looking at the cost effectiveness necessarily of sidewalk repair and lighting and things along those lines. The proposed project is looking at a new transit option that would go from Los Angeles Union Station to Dodger Stadium. Next question, who will assume operation after McCourt declares bankruptcy? I do not know. Those are several assumptions in the future that are not necessarily the purview of the California Environmental Quality Act review. Next question, who is paying costs for the right-of-way? This particular project is not a Metro project. It is a privately funded and operated project. So the costs as proposed right now would be assumed by the proposers. In this case, that is Los Angeles Aerial Rapid Transit LLC. Again, this is a privately funded, and as proposed, this is a privately funded and operated project. So Metro is not lined up to pay for the costs associated with this project at present. Next question, what is the baseline for the 50,000 MT of emissions? That is a question that is best answered once we release the draft environmental impact report next week. So why don't we save that one for after October 17th, when the draft environmental impact report is released.
Anthony, for today's meeting, just want to clarify everyone, we are just, as you may hear, Anthony is only going to be answering process questions as we prepare for the release of the draft EIR. And then I also want to just note for the meeting, if people do attend this Saturday's meeting, we will be validating parking this Saturday. So wanted to let folks know that piece of information. Back to you, Anthony.
All right. So I'm going to run through some of these questions quickly. Again, we're focusing on process. A lot of these questions will be addressed once the draft environmental impact report is released next week. So I ask you to hold those questions for those information sessions and the public hearings that are scheduled at a later date. Let's go through. Other questions include how many fans in each gondola? Again, defer that one to after the draft environmental impact report is released. Question regarding the mock-up of the gondola at Dodger Stadium. Again, defer that one to the after the release of the draft environmental impact report. Question regarding the 7-minute ride time, including dwell time of the cabins in the intermediate Chinatown station. What is the dwell time in the cabins at the Chinatown station? Again, that is a question that is best answered after the release of the draft environmental impact report. Another question, for those workshops and hearings, will the Saturday ones be in the morning and the Tuesday ones in the evening? Let's go back to the upcoming meetings slide. So the pre-DEIR release community information session scheduled for this Saturday, October 15th, is in the morning from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Let's see, I believe, and actually, Michael, can you look it up, the timing for the informational workshops on the 22nd and the 25th?
Yes.
I've got that information at my fingertips.
That would be great, Jessica, go for it.
Yeah, so the meeting on the 22nd is Saturday, October 22nd from 10 to 12, and it's virtual. And the in-person meeting is on Tuesday, October 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Union Station. And there are additional meetings in December.
Thank you. Next question, what will the hours be for the gondola? Will it take the tap card? Again, a question that's best answered after the release of the DEIR next week. A question and a comment. First of all, thank you for the event, very informative. What is the estimated ridership annually? That will be covered again in the DEIR once it is released next week. So today we're mostly covering the process and information about the project itself. The draft environmental impact report is really designed to be comprehensive and look at many of the issues that you're raising in some of these questions. And you can provide comments once it's released, as well as ask additional questions after it's released about some of the data that's contained in that. But today's meeting is primarily focused on providing project information, as well as information about the environmental review process that's being undertaken as part of this particular project.
I also wanted to add to the question about information on the virtual meetings and in person. If folks were to go to our website right now from the address that is listed, you will see information on more on these meetings there. So it's a great location for you to get information once the draft EIR is released, but there's also information already on the upcoming meetings.
All right. 1 second. How many members of the public are participating in this information session tonight? I believe we have, the number has varied throughout the course of the presentation. At present, there are approximately 50 people that are participating in the attendees section of the meeting tonight. Another question is, how much will the gondola, how will using the gondola cost as compared to the free Dodger Stadium Express? Again, another question that's best answered after the release of the DEIR. Another question, are public funds being used for this project? How many towers, stations, and junctions are there? What is the difference between junctions and stations? I will tackle the first question. Public funds are not slated to be used for this project. As I previously stated, this project as proposed is privately funded and privately operated. It is not a Metro project that is being sponsored by Metro or being paid for by Metro at present. Metro is serving as the lead agency for the review of the project for environmental purposes under the California Environmental Quality Act. However, this is not a Metro project itself. It's a privately funded and operated project. Regarding the towers, stations, and junctions, those again will be covered in the draft environmental impact report. So hold tight starting next Monday. How can you participate in a public meeting? As indicated on the slide in front of you, there's an in-person community information session scheduled for this Saturday. There's 2 additional informational workshops after the draft environmental impact report has been released. And then there's 2 draft environmental impact report public hearings that'll take place later in December. All of those are open to the public, and we encourage anyone and everyone to participate and to attend those. Even if you are not able to attend those, you can still provide your comments by sending your information in either by phone, by email, by mail, et cetera, et cetera. I think I just covered the next question. How can I provide comments? You can provide comments on the draft environmental impact report after October 17th, once it is released to the public. And those comments can be provided through a variety of means, as I indicated previously. They can be provided via phone. They can be provided via email. They can be provided via US mail. They can also be provided in person at the hearings that are listed there. So there's a number of different ways that you can provide comments on the project after the draft environmental impact report is released. All right, a lot of questions here. Most of these questions, however, are not related to the process. I'm going to have to defer them to after October 17th, and those information sessions scheduled for the 22nd, the 25th, and the public hearings scheduled on December 10th and December 13th. Let's see. Question, is a 20% replacement based on the max capacity of the tram, or is it based on expected users? That, again, is a question that is best covered in the DEIR. Is the information about who is providing the private funds. The project is sponsored by Los Angeles Aerial Rapid Transit. So that is the company that is putting forward this particular project and is proposing to build, own, and operate it. How can I participate in the public meetings? Once again, there's an in-person pre-draft environmental impact report information session scheduled for this Saturday in person at Los Angeles Union Station. And then once the DEIR is released, there are 2 informational workshops scheduled in October and 2 public hearings scheduled in December. Will the EIR be able to be commented on by the public after it is released? Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Is the info about who is providing the private funds available for public access? What is available for public access is the proposer, and that is Los Angeles Aerial Rapid Transit. Let's see. What type of questions are you looking for here if everything is being deferred? The questions here are primarily related to, the questions that we're prepared to answer today are primarily related to the process, the environmental process. They are, the purpose of this meeting is to give you information about the proposed project, as well as to give you information about the CEQA, or California Environmental Quality Act, process itself. Comments on the potential impacts of the project, comments on or information regarding what's contained within the draft environmental impact report will have to be deferred until after the draft environmental impact report is released. And at that point, members of the public and anyone will have an opportunity to comment on that, having full information at their fingertips that is actually contained within that particular report. All right, I'm looking for other process questions here.
Anthony,
yes.
While you're looking for process questions, I do want to relate to those that are listening in. This presentation is now on our website. So if you go to metro.net/Aero Rapid Transit, you go to documents, you will find this presentation translated in Cantonese, Mandarin, and Spanish, as well as the English version. So just want to let people know this presentation is now available on our website.
Thank you, Michael. Excuse me. What is the difference between the informational workshops on the 22nd and the 25th in this meeting? The primary difference is that on the 22nd and the 25th, people will have the opportunity to have reviewed the draft environmental impact report and provide formal comments and questions related to the draft environmental impact report. There is a wealth of information that will be contained in that report once it's released on October 17th. At this point, we do not have the information available to us that's contained in that report. So today's meeting is primarily focused on just the process. So the difference between today's meeting and the meetings on the 22nd and the 25th are that on the 22nd and 25th, you will have much more information at your fingertips in the form of the draft environmental impact report, and questions can be answered based upon the information that's contained in that report. Question, can the comment period on the DEIR be extended to encompass 90 days rather than 60 days? The community needs more time to review and deadline files in December. Right now, the comment period is for 60 days. Of course, anyone can request that it be extended, but at present, the comment period is scheduled for 60 days. Who is paying for the environmental impact report? The environmental impact report and process is being paid for by the proposals. Metro, again, is serving as the lead agency, and it is designed to come at no cost to Metro to provide the lead agency work for this particular project. All right. When do you expect the final EIR to be released? I do not know at this point when that final EIR will be released. Will the Q&A be permitted similarly as today during this coming Saturday information session? Yes. We'll be answering questions primarily about the CEQA process and the environmental review process. We will not be doing questions about the draft environmental impact report or the impacts that are being analyzed in that until after it is released on October 17th. Will Metro take Q&A in all of the upcoming meetings, especially the in-person meeting coming next? The meeting coming up next on Saturday, we will do a Q&A in a similar fashion as to today, focusing on process questions. However, we won't be covering topics in the environmental impact report itself. Will the Saturday 10:15 information session be extended if there are numerous members of the public with questions? Right now, the meeting is scheduled from 10 to 12. It is an open house format meeting. So we do anticipate that most people have an opportunity to have most of their questions addressed in that open house format for this Saturday's meeting. All right. Looking for other process questions in the chat. And there's so little information about this project. How can we request that the 60-day comment period be extended to 90 days? You can send a letter to Metro at the address indicated previously, requesting that it be extended beyond the 60 days. What are the time parameters for the Q&A during this coming Saturday's information session? The Saturday information session is scheduled as an open house format meeting. So if you have specific questions, you're more than happy to join us at the open house, and you can address those questions as soon as you arrive. So it is an open house format scheduled from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. All right. Looking at other questions. How can we expedite the EIR process? The EIR process is guided by the California Environmental Quality Act, and there are specific milestones and benchmarks that are identified as part of that process. Excuse me. SB 44 does provide some expedited ways to speed up the environmental process. However, CEQA is designed to ensure that there is a thorough vetting of proposed projects, and the environmental impacts for those proposed projects are vetted in a comprehensive and public way. Am I correct? This Saturday will only be addressing process questions. Again, that is correct. All right, I think those are all of the questions so far that are related to process. If there's other questions that are related to the process, I'd be more than happy to address those now. However, as previously indicated, on Monday, October 17th, the draft environmental impact report will be released to the public. You can get it at a variety of locations. And after that draft environmental impact report is released on Monday, begins the 60-day comment period. Comments can be received in a variety of different ways. There will be a wealth of information that will be contained in the draft EIR itself. So we strongly encourage people to take a look at that draft EIR, develop your questions and comments, and then please submit them at either the information workshops or the public hearings themselves, or you can send them via email and by mail and by phone during the public comment period beginning on October 17th. All right. I think those are all of the process questions so far. Just do a quick refresh. I just sent a process question. Will the Q&A be extended during the post-DEIR sessions to account for more extensive and detailed questions based upon the DEIR? I don't know at this point. We'll have to take a look at that once we get to those information sessions in the public hearings. Right.
There was a question, how can people provide comments once the draft EIR is released?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
How can people provide comments once the draft EIR is released?
Let's go back to the previous slide in advance. Exactly. So once the DEIR is released, the draft environmental impact report is released on October 17th. You can attend the public hearings. You can email your comments to laart@metro.net. You can call our hotline 213-922-6913, or you can mail them to Mr. Corey Zelmer, Deputy Executive Officer, Metro 1 Gateway Plaza, mail stop 99-22-6, Los Angeles, California 90012. One second, let's take a look at the questions. A lot of questions here. All right.
There's a question about, will there be headsets for translation? So we will have translation at the upcoming informational session this Saturday. So yes, we will have translation services this Saturday as well.
Approximately how long is the DEIR document? I do not know at this point. All right, additional questions. If you have additional questions, please put them in the Q&A. Again, today's meeting is focusing on process questions, questions about the California Environmental Quality Act, the draft environmental impact report process itself. We will not be covering information that's contained in that draft environmental impact report. So these are questions that are primarily focused on the process leading up to this point and moving forward. So there's a question about the proposer for this particular project. The proposer for this particular project is Los Angeles Area Rapid Transit. And again, Metro is serving as the lead agency for this particular environmental impact report and review.
As Anthony's looking at more questions that are coming in, I just want to emphasize that metro.net/AL Rapid Transit has if you go to the documents tab and click there, you will see information for tonight's meeting, but it will also be a resource for you to get fact sheets that are there as well. But then once the draft EIR is released, there will be more information, but there is already documents there already if people want to learn more about this project. So we want you to utilize that as a library for you to further learn more about this project.
Will the recording of this presentation session be available to the public? Yes, the presentation is already available on the website. So that is available already right now.
the recording will be available soon after. So we are recording it today, but it will be available soon after.
All right. Again, if you've got additional questions regarding the process, please put them in the Q&A. Right now, I don't see any open questions. We will give it one more minute for anyone to come up with additional questions. Will Metro or LA Art respond to public comments, and will LA Art representatives be at any of the next meetings? Once the draft environmental impact report is released, as per California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, all comments will be responded to. And I do anticipate that there will be Los Angeles Area Rapid Transit representatives at the upcoming meetings. How are public comments taken into account in the period between the draft environmental impact report and the final? Ori, do you want to address this?
Anthony, the typical process is that they're taken during the public review period for the draft environmental impact report. So the period that we've indicated, October 17th through December 16th, is when we're looking to really receive the public comments and feedback on the draft EIR. And then it is part of preparing the final EIR. We will be responding to all those comments received.
Then Corey, while we still have you on, I know you discussed this earlier in the presentation, but do you want to go over what the informational workshops on October 22nd, 25th, and then the public hearings process again?
Sure, I can. Do you want to go back to those slides?
Sure.
Michael? I know there was a question about the difference between those informational workshops and today's, and as Anthony has mentioned, the benefit of the informational workshop shown here on October 22nd and October 25th are that the draft EIR will have already been released, and it's our intent at those informational workshops to present more information from the draft EIR, particularly the key analyses in that EIR and conclusions presented in the EIR. So it will be more information specifically pertaining to the draft EIR and the information contained in the draft EIR. Now, the public hearings are, again, where we want to, are opportunities to hear testimony and to receive public comments from the public during the course of those meetings. But again, that's not the only opportunity. You're more than welcome to attend the public hearings to provide your comments, but the EIR will be a large document, and there may be a need to review it over time. And by all means, if folks need to provide comments in other ways, by phone or by email or postal mail, we encourage that as well. And there's no limit on the number of comments, or number of times you can comment. So you're open to provide comments at any time during the course of the public comment period.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.
Question is, will they incorporate into the final EIR? As Corey just indicated, yes, comments will be. Where's the parking this Saturday? Parking is at LA Union Station. You can enter off of Vignes Street, which is at the east portal of Union Station. That is where the multi-level underground parking garage is located. You can also enter off of Alameda Street. However, Vignes Street is the easier entrance for parking.
And to add to what Corey said, can't emphasize enough, you do not need to. You can start once the draft EIR is released. You can provide public comment from the first day or up to the end of the public comment period. These public hearings are offered as another resource for you, and of course, informational hearings for you to learn if you need to know more before you make your public comment. But again, you can begin public comment as of when it's released.
All right. Public comment period at present appears to be in the middle of a busy year and family holiday party. There's a reason for a limited extension of just 15 days. As I previously stated, the comment period right now is set for 60 days. Of course, you can request an additional time period. However, right now it's scheduled for 60 days. Will the public comments result in additional studies? I do not know. All right, any additional questions related to the CEQA process? Is there an opportunity to express gratitude to the project sponsor at the upcoming workshops? Yes, I'm sure that the project sponsor will be more than happy to take gratitude regarding this project. And you can also, of course, provide that in your comments via the various mechanisms that we talked about earlier. Right, if there are no additional questions, then I am going to thank you for participating in today's community information session. Thank you for your questions and your attention and your patience. And again, we will be having another information session scheduled for this Saturday, October 15th. The same information will be presented at that particular meeting. So there's no new information that you did not see today that will be presented. And we look forward to getting your comments and you participating in the upcoming meetings after the draft environmental impact report is released on October 17th. And on that note, I will say go Dodgers. And again, thank you everyone for your patience and participation. Have a good night.